The Egyptian Book of the Dead is one of the most significant religious texts from ancient Egypt, serving as a guide for the deceased on their journey through the afterlife. Composed over centuries, it is a compilation of spells, prayers, and rituals intended to assist the soul in navigating the dangers of the underworld, securing divine favor, and ultimately achieving eternal life. The text reflects the ancient Egyptian belief in the complex interrelationship between the physical body, the spiritual elements of the soul, and the divine forces governing life and death. This belief system was not only integral to their religious worldview, but also permeated their burial practices, moral codes, and societal structure. Central to the Book of the Dead is the idea of maintaining a delicate balance between the components of the soul, including the ka, life force, ba, spirit, and the physical body, as well as adhering to ma'at, the principle of cosmic order and truth. The rituals and spells within the text highlight a series of interdependent processes that govern the soul's fate in the afterlife, forming triads of mutual influence and dependency. These triadic relationships, such as the coexistence of the ka, ba, and body, illustrate the Egyptians' conception of life and death as a continuous cycle of preservation and renewal. Each triad operates according to distinct principles of balance, causality, and moral consequence, encapsulating a sophisticated understanding of metaphysical processes. In analyzing these triads, we will explore how the themes of coexistence, reinforcement, causality, and others within the Book of the Dead can be understood through patterns of interaction that reflect the Egyptian worldview. Through the lenses of reinforcement, balance, harmony, and divergence, we can better appreciate the intricate cosmology that underpins ancient Egyptian religious thought and the means by which they sought to transcend death. By situating these patterns within broader philosophical and ritual frameworks, we can reveal how the Book of the Dead serves not only as a religious text, but also as a reflection of a worldview in which every element of existence is interconnected and cyclical. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the triadic relationship between the ba, spirit, ka, life force, and the physical body is central to the deceased's journey into the afterlife. These three elements must exist in a state of coexistence to sustain the soul's continued existence. This is reflected in the numerous rituals and spells designed to preserve the ka, reunite the ba with the body, and maintain the corpse in its mummified form. The spells act as safeguards to maintain this vital equilibrium, ensuring that the deceased can enter the afterlife with all aspects of their being intact. If any of these elements fall out of balance, the harmony necessary for the soul's passage falters. This relationship also speaks to the deep integration between the physical and metaphysical, showing how ancient Egyptians saw death not as a cessation, but as a complex interplay of continued existence across different planes. The opposite, equilibrium in non-being, occurs if this balance is disrupted. Should the ka, for instance, fail to receive nourishment from offerings, or if the body is improperly mummified, the entire triad collapses. The ka loses its strength, the ba cannot return to a decayed body, and the soul is trapped in a state of non-regeneration, unable to pass into the afterlife. This failure to maintain equilibrium leads to spiritual death, reinforcing the high stakes of achieving balance in life and death. The soul's journey becomes one of restoration and preservation, where the dead's success is dependent on achieving perfect equilibrium between all elements. Reinforcement and feedback. The Book of the Dead emphasizes the need for continuous reinforcement through spells, offerings, and rituals to empower the deceased in the afterlife. Spells are not a one-time fix, but a continuous feedback loop that keeps the ka nourished, allowing the ba to remain strong and mobile. For example, Spell 89 ensures that the deceased can eat, drink, and move freely in the afterlife, essentially empowering the life force, Ka, to sustain the spirit, Ba, and by extension, the body's continued preservation. This illustrates a living cycle in which each element of the soul fortifies the others, a process in which actions in life, such as preparing offerings, extend well into death. Negative feedback, however, emerges from neglect or failure to perform these rituals. Without regular offerings, the Ka weakens, leading to the eventual decay of the Ba and the body. The text warns explicitly of this possibility, showing that neglect of the living can disrupt the delicate balance in the afterlife. The triad of Ba, Ka, and body reflects a feedback mechanism in which the deceased's vitality is either enhanced or eroded based on the maintenance of their rituals. This negative feedback loop is a cautionary aspect of Egyptian cosmology, where spiritual strength is dependent on sustained, active participation from both the living and the dead. One of the most powerful sequences in the Book of the Dead is the causal chain found in the weighing of the heart, where one's moral life leads to judgment and ultimately to access to the afterlife. This scene illustrates a clear, linear process in which a life lived in virtue has direct consequences for one's posthumous fate. The heart, representing the deceased's moral core, is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth and justice, revealing the fundamental causal relationship between earthly behavior and divine judgment. If the heart balances, the deceased is granted passage into the afterlife, an eternity in harmony with the gods. However, failure in this moral test results in reversion. The soul is immediately cast out of the afterlife. The causal chain reverses. Wickedness during life leads to a failed judgment, which results in the ultimate consequence of annihilation. The moral law governing the universe in the Egyptian worldview is absolute and clear-cut, with no room for ambiguity in judgment. This demonstrates a strict alignment of ethics, where morality directly determines one's afterlife trajectory, reinforcing the Egyptian belief in a just and ordered universe governed by Ma'at. The Book of the Dead presents a non-linear understanding of the soul's journey. Rather than traveling on a single linear path from life to death, the Ba can move freely between the realms of the living and the dead. This concept is encapsulated in spells like 85 and 86, which allow the Ba to revisit the earthly realm, ensuring that the soul is not bound by a singular direction. The ability of the Ba to return to the body or tomb shows that time and space in the afterlife are not perceived in linear terms. Instead, the soul moves fluidly between realms, reflecting the Egyptian belief in the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. A failure to complete these rituals creates a retrospective block. If the necessary spells are not performed, the Ba becomes trapped, unable to navigate between realms. The soul, then, is locked into a single place, typically the underworld, cut off from the body and the living world. This failure, represented as a retrospective block, speaks to the importance of fluid movement and accessibility between planes of existence, reinforcing the idea that life and death are interconnected in complex, non-linear ways. The process of inclusion into the afterlife is clearly outlined in the Book of the Dead. Virtue leads to judgment, which in turn grants the soul inclusion into the company of gods. In spell 125, the deceased must stand before 42 deities and declare their purity. This ritual of inclusion is based on moral and ritual purity. Those who can make these declarations truthfully are welcomed into Aru, the field of reeds, an eternal paradise. This inclusive process reflects the idea that righteous souls are not merely passive, but must actively demonstrate their worthiness to join the divine. In contrast, corruption or sin leads to exclusion. A heart heavy with falsehood results in immediate rejection from the afterlife, represented by the heart being devoured by the monster Amit. This exclusion reflects the absolute moral standards of ancient Egyptian theology. There is no middle ground. The consequences of failing to meet the criteria of purity and virtue are total, as the soul is cast out from divine company and denied eternal life. This binary system reflects the high stakes of moral and ritual adherence in ancient Egyptian belief. For the deceased to survive in the afterlife, the triad of Ba, Ka, and body must remain conjoined. This union ensures the soul's ability to maintain a full identity and to continue living beyond death. In spells like 89, the Ba and Ka are described as reuniting with the body each night, reinforcing their connection and ensuring continuity of existence. The reunification of these elements is crucial for the soul to navigate the challenges of the afterlife. This conjoining reflects a broader theme in Egyptian cosmology. Life and death are sustained through the interconnection of the soul's components. When one of these elements fails, the entire process becomes bottlenecked. If the body is destroyed, or the Ba and Ka fail to reunite, the soul is unable to regenerate, leading to a total collapse of the afterlife journey. The triad of Ba, Ka, and body is thus an essential, delicate system. If one element is lost, the others cannot function, halting the entire afterlife process. The text's emphasis on mummification and continuous offerings speaks to the importance of keeping this system intact, as even minor disruptions can create significant obstacles in the soul's journey. The Book of the Dead often presents a vision of harmony between the deceased, the gods, and the forces of nature. In spell 30b, for example, the heart speaks for itself during judgment, aligning the soul with Mayat, the principle of cosmic order. The successful navigation of the afterlife relies on this harmonious relationship, where the gods, the deceased, and the natural order work together to ensure the soul's passage into eternal life. This harmony reflects a belief in the interconnectedness of all things, where balance between the divine, natural, and human worlds ensures the continuation of life beyond death. When this harmony is broken, dissonance occurs, leading to rejection by the gods and disruption of the soul's journey. If the heart betrays the deceased during judgment, the cosmic order turns against them. This dissonance illustrates the precarious nature of the afterlife process. Any disruption in the divine or natural balance results in failure. The emphasis on proper ritual observance and moral behavior underscores the need for harmony, as the slightest misalignment can lead to the soul's undoing. All the rituals, spells, and offerings in the Book of the Dead converge toward one ultimate goal: achieving eternal life. The text details how the actions of the deceased, the recitation of spells, and divine judgment all align to achieve this singular outcome. This convergence is especially evident in the process of becoming one with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Every ritual, whether aimed at preserving the body, feeding the Ka, or guiding the Ba, leads toward this ultimate reunion with Osiris, ensuring eternal life. However, if any of these elements fail, the soul's path diverges from this unified goal. A failed judgment or improperly performed rituals result in the soul being split off from the path of eternal life and descending into destruction. This divergence is clear. The righteous souls proceed towards Osiris, while those who fail in their duties are condemned to oblivion. The binary nature of this divergence highlights the stakes involved in the afterlife journey, where every action must align to secure a favorable outcome. The Egyptian Book of the Dead offers profound insights into spiritual growth, not just for the ancient Egyptians, but for modern readers as well. At its core, the text emphasizes the importance of balance, moral integrity, and interconnectedness. The triadic relationships between the Ka, Ba, and body, and the rigorous rituals required to maintain their harmony, highlight the necessity of caring for all aspects of one's existence: physical, spiritual, and ethical. Spiritual growth, as portrayed in this text, is not a passive process, but one of active engagement with life's complexities, requiring continuous nourishment, reflection, and alignment with higher principles like Mayat, the embodiment of truth, justice, and cosmic order. One of the key lessons from the Book of the Dead is the idea of mutual reinforcement. Spiritual vitality is not an isolated endeavor, but one that depends on reciprocity between actions, virtues, and community. Just as the car relies on offerings from the living, so too does individual growth rely on nurturing relationships, giving and receiving, and sustaining moral and spiritual practices. Furthermore, the emphasis on judgment and causality teaches that spiritual development is a lifelong pursuit. Virtue and integrity in life directly shape one's experience in death. The Egyptians believed that purity of heart and adherence to truth were not just desirable traits, but essential conditions for a soul's journey into eternity. For modern seekers of spiritual growth, the Book of the Dead serves as a reminder of the importance of ritual, mindfulness, and moral accountability. It suggests that spiritual fulfillment is achieved through consistent practice, self-awareness, and a commitment to aligning one's actions with universal truths. The text also offers a deep appreciation for the cyclical nature of existence, encouraging us to view life and death as part of a continuum, where each moment and decision shapes the larger arc of our spiritual journey. In understanding this interconnectedness, we can approach life with greater responsibility, intention, and reverence, growing in wisdom and harmony with the forces that sustain us both in life and beyond.